Let's continue our rehearsal, and the next thing I would like to do is to overview the changes that took place in drawbox.cpp. Again, you can follow these green bars on the sideline to see what changes took place. Okay, so new parameter that create primitive is taking, and then of course the radio ID text is new, and this is what creates the new primitive text and takes extra parameter, this text, to create a primitive text. Radio ID line, circle, and rectangle remain the same, but these are also brand new, and this is where the colors were hard-coded to yellow and blue. Yellow for the circle and blue for the rectangle. Feel free to change this the way you like. Again, just look at these side bars indicating where the changes took place compared to the prototype Laboratory 16. The next change right here, I'm bringing it up. We did not have to use, we did not have to provide these constructors explicitly because in the header file, when we created these declarations for the filled circle and filled rectangle, I'm using the using declaration, which tells the compiler that it's okay to use the base class constructor, primitive circle, and this is the name of the constructor. It is permitted with immediate base classes. So if this is the derived class and this is the base class, it's permitted in the latest version of C++ standard to say, instead of repeating the constructor in this derived class, just say that I'm using exactly the same version of the constructor that the circle is using, because I'm not really, this is possible because we're not adding any new data members. All the data members belong to the base class. So there is really no reason to do anything special. But if we had to provide it, this is the way it would look like. So then we just wanted to redo the draw, and this draw is of course declared in the primitive base as a virtual function. So this is virtual function, and this is the new implementation for circle fill draw again. So this is another change. So this is really not needed because again this is based on the using declaration inside the class. But this is the version of the draw for the filled rectangle, and you need to make update before you submit your final result. So this is another update that took place. All right, so next change that we also made in the implementation file drawbox.cpp is that constructor of the drawbox has to, and I'll scroll down to declaration of drawbox class right here, we have new member. So of course every time you have new member, the constructor needs to be updated. So we added this. We just initialized this in a pointer to null pointer to begin with. The next change that took place in the implementation file is the definition for two new functions, get primitive type right here and set input label. These are trivial functions, return primitive type and accept new input label pointer. So that's pretty trivial right here. So the next change that I made was inside C drawbox handle. And of course, it's because, once again, our create, where is this declaration? I'm looking for the declaration of create primitive, right? So create primitive right here. Create primitive. Create primitive now requires text. And so this is the text which is constantly available from this input box. This input box is not disabled at any time. It just contains something. So regardless what it contains, we always go here and say let's take the value and add it as extra parameter to call create primitive. So create primitive always gets the content from here. So that's what we do. We just go to input label, which is this text input, and get its value, the C string right here. All right. So the next change. So this was a very just one small change right here in Drawbox handle. And finally, we added implementation of our brand new class that represents primitive text, right? So I added it right here. So the constructor is very similar to all other primitives, is just that initializes the string with the text. So there's an extra parameter compared to other constructors of graphical primitives, and so it takes the text. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward. Draw. So this is my version of the draw. Feel free to change this any way you like, but this is how you display text in Fulltext library. You just use FLDraw and pass coordinates. So I believe this is the upper left corner of the text, if you envision this text on your screen, and you just provide whatever the text should be displayed. And also the update function for the mouse up event, and that's just passing the second set of coordinates to remember when the object is configured. So this is it. So these are the things that took place, the changes that took place inside Drawbox CPP. And finally, very quick look at main window changes. So the main window just does a little bit of tweaking. So let's scroll back up right here. So the top of the file is main window show, and show also we use as a configuration, right? So before we show anything, we do all tweaks and all configuration settings, set up all callback pointers. So this is it, window callbacks. So we have added RDO text callback. Let's resize this one more time so you can observe what I did on this line. So this is the new line that was added to here to handle make sure that RDO text is giving us a callback. And we're using callback radio button for all of the radio buttons. Then we also took care of Drawbox. So we say let's start with the line to be the initial type to use internally. But then we also, this is finally when we know it's safe to give the Drawbox pointer to input label. Okay, so this is where we tell this Drawbox, this gadget, our Drawbox, to use. This is the pointer to the text input widget in our Fluid Design window. Because if you look at the files generated by Fluid for us, right, so under Fluid project, if you take a look at Fluid window.h right here, so these are all the gadgets that we're using, and this is the input label that was generated by Fluid. And so this pointer here is pointing to this widget control that we're creating part of the Fluid window. Of course, this is generated by Fluid. So back to the main window, right? So this is in show. So we have inserted this line, and we also inserted these two lines. Okay, so the next change that took place is inside the radio button, click radio button. So click radio button is now assuming primitive type is button ID, but then decides to So we're actually making this call use primitive type. I think this can be commented out actually, because we unconditionally update it anyway. So let's just comment this out. This is the old code. And so now we added radio ID text on top of radio ID line to deactivate the check field. So for example, if we are changing type to text, the field gets disabled. If we change it back to rectangle or circle, of course it gets enabled, but both text and line disable it. And so this is where this is the reason we have these two cases right here. So this line is new, I added it. And then this is the new line, and this is the new line. And you can, we already discussed the logic here, is that when we have the circle, sometimes we have to change from the circle to filled circle, and likewise switch from rectangle to filled rectangle. And finally, we tell the Dropbox that now we determined, as a result of this click or this click later on as well, that you should be using this specific primitive type. So basically this click, this handle for a radio button click, computes the primitive type that the Dropbox should use to create new drawing primitives. So let's scroll down to the next set of changes, and this set of changes is just for the for this control, the field control, which is the checkbox. We completely redid the implementation click check button. So what this does, it basically determines whether this box is filled, which is true or false. And then we use all cases. For text and line, we don't do anything because they don't care about the filled option. But other options, circle, filled, rectangle, rectangle filled, pay attention to what the impact should be on the actual primitive type. So these are all the changes that took place in main-window.cpp. And so that's the functionality that I'm getting right now in my version of this project.